we kick off?
Should now be recording, hopefully.
Great, thank you, Tracy. So yep, the meeting is being recorded, and as you know, that is so that members of the public and indeed colleagues who aren't able to attend the meeting will be able to watch it back. And it provides a really good opportunity for people to view us really, and for us to be transparent about the business we're conducting. So anyway, delighted to welcome you all to our Council of Governors meeting for October. We do have, I think, just the one apology today. Mike Bouden has sent his apologies. I think we were thinking that Robin might need to, but I seem to recall getting a note that Robin was indeed planning to attend. So I'm hoping that is now the case. Am I
yes,
right?
Yes, I am here, Christy.
Hi, Robin. Yes,
Hiya.
welcome. Lovely to see you. Great. Well, without any further ado, then we're going to make a start to our formal meeting, and just check really whether anyone's got any declarations of interest in relation to things that we'll be discussing today, and also a reminder that if you have any specific interests that you need to just tell us through the office. So it's just important for us to note those, and obviously by interest we mean relationships with other organisations and other parties who might be relevant, so that we have that on record. We do also have apologies from Linda, our chief nurse. I should make a note of that as well. So we'll just deal with the minutes of the previous meeting, which is the meeting we held in August, and that is paper B. So I really just want to make sure that colleagues are happy that those minutes are an accurate reflection of the meeting that took place. If anyone's got any points of accuracy to raise, then you have an opportunity to do that now. So I should just pause momentarily just to check whether anyone's got any concerns about accuracy. If not, we'll take it that you're happy to approve that it is an accurate record of our meeting. We had one outstanding action. I think it was actually from a previous meeting. And this is an action, yes, it was from our June meeting, and it was, I think, a suggestion from one of the governors around making sure we thought about how the sort of system collaboration elements of the Code of Governance would be enacted within our system. And what we're anticipating is that we have a joint workshop with Kettering General Hospital on the 21st of October. It's an evening, early evening online event. And we're looking to use that opportunity to explore really the role of governors within the context of system working and collaboration. And so hopefully colleagues will be happy to close that action, but we can take stock completed that meeting as to whether we wish to do anything more than that. Tracy, can you just confirm, I think you were going to remind everybody to let us know if they were able to attend that meeting. Is that right? And have you been able to do that?
It's been in the mailing. It's going back in tomorrow's mailing. We've not got that many governors confirmed. I'm sure some of you are planning to come. So if you could just make sure you've let us know if you're planning to attend on the 21st of October. There's a little bit more detail this week about the content as well. So just look out for that tomorrow.
And I think it should be really good and interesting, because you'll hear from colleagues from KGH and ourselves about work that we're doing within the system. And then we'll have an opportunity to explore that and understand how we're working together in different ways. So I think it'd be a great opportunity if people could attend. I think it's 21st of October at 5 o'clock. Is that right, Tracy?
5:30 till 7.
5:30. So 21st of October, 5:30 to 7. Great opportunity if you can come along because, as I say, it's us working together with the KGH Council of Governors as well. And hopefully we will be able to give you that opportunity to talk about how we work together from a system point of view as part of that. So excellent. Thank you very much. We move on to one of our first sessions then, which is on Governor Matters and item 5, which is the Council of Governors report. So on this, I'm going to hand over to Richard Smith. Richard, over to you.
Thanks, Krishni. Good afternoon, everybody. Pleased to be presenting the report again this month. Thanks very much to colleagues in my team that prepared much of the content whilst I was on holiday. So I'll draw out just a few things from the paper and then we'll happily take any questions or comments from governors or board members. I was really pleased actually to attend the annual general meeting of the Council of Governors, the annual public and members meeting actually last month. It's a real celebration of the work that we've done, both as an individual organisation, but also as a part of a group with Leicester Partnership Trust over the past year. Some great content from 3 of our areas of work, 2 services and a corporate programme that we've been working on, and in addition to receiving our Governor video. So if you haven't managed to attend in live on the day, then do look out for the recording because it's well worth catching up thereafter. And of course, the actual annual report itself is available on the public website if you wish to have a read. Next up then, we've been running a fairly successful programme of member webinars actually across the year. And you'll see in the pack that we've highlighted the most recent webinar. I was unfortunately on holiday, so I wasn't able to attend myself, but I'm assured that it was another well-attended event. We ran a similar event last year, which focused on careers in the NHS. I think it was probably one of our best attended events from people that were looking to understand how to get a career or a job indeed in the NHS. So I understand that this event was similarly well attended, and so thanks not only to those governors and colleagues that were able to attend, but also for people's interest as well. Next up then, we reported to the council previously that we were out to advert for a non-executive director and chair of the audit committee to replace Zakib when he leaves at the end of this year, and also that we'd be pursuing a recruitment programme for a new joint associate non-executive director position between NHFT and LPT in Leicestershire. Colleagues on the Nominations and Remuneration, or NOMREM, committee will be well aware that this process is underway, as we undertook some long listing earlier this week. We were pleased to receive a large number of applications for both positions, the full NED position and the joint associate NED position. And you can see in the pack the next steps with that process, which will ultimately result in some recommendations coming forward to the council, hopefully with some candidates to approve later in the year. So look out for further updates from this process as we go forward. Again, we referenced in previous meetings that we had relaunched the IQ log. This is the Ideas, Issues and Questions log. This is a mechanism really for governors to let us know about any ideas they have about improvements that we could make, any issues that they've observed that they'd want us to follow up, or any questions that they had that they're looking for an answer on. We set out in the pack what you would need to do. Please do keep the questions, ideas and issues coming, and we are sharing the answers to those questions or responses to issues with governors in the mailings that Tracy referenced. Also to highlight, I think we referenced previously, we received national acclaim for the work that we've done last year on our Governor Pledge programme. We're well underway with this year's Governor Pledge programme, and we can see there that some really good progress has been made. So do let us know if you are making progress with your individual pledge, because we are tracking tracking progress, and I know the Membership Engagement and Representation Committee is also interested in what's happening as well, not just things that are being completed, but also lessons learned that would inform work that others are pursuing as well. So finally, then, you can see in the pack that we've included information about both upcoming events and also upcoming meetings for your diaries. So with that, Christian, I'll hand back to you for any questions or comments on the report this month. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Any comments or questions then for Richard? Tracy?
I was just going to put out a bit of an appeal. We've got, I believe, a number of governors involved in the interview panel, and I think we've got 6 governors for the stakeholder group on the 18th of November for the non-exec director recruitment. We do ideally looking for just a couple more governors, so if anybody else is available, please do let us know. So anyone's welcome to join that's available on the day, and it will almost certainly be all day, so you will need to be available all day, but it will be on Teams, so there's no travelling involved.
Thank you very much, Tracy. I wonder whether, I know a couple of people have been involved in the stakeholder panel process in the past, and we might maybe get somebody to explain a little bit about what that was like, because it's always nice so that you understand how, not to go into detail about it, but just how the day pans out. Has anybody, I think Ranjit may have done it before, or Richard may have done it before. I'm just trying to think about people who've experienced it. Ranjit, are you happy to just comment on what it was like to be involved in the stakeholder panel?
It's sorry. Sorry. Yes, I'm off mute. Yes, very interesting. Very you don't need to be. It's one of those where you don't need to have knowledge or set questions. It's that openness and being able to see things differently and being able to make sure that you help in terms of challenging the questions and make sure we get the right individual appointed.
Thank you, Ranjit. That's really helpful. Thank you very much. And Richard?
Thank you, Krishna. Yeah, I've been involved in a stakeholder panel before, and I think for me, interviews on their own can be quite anxiety provoking. But I think the stakeholder panel is an opportunity for you to really get to know the candidates, in terms of who they are, their background, the experience, things that may not necessarily be related directly to the work they're coming to do, just, what they are like as individuals, what hobbies. So I think it's a good way to kind of have a feel of the candidates before they actually go to the interview panel itself. So yeah, for me, it was a very good opportunity to get to know people and also to learn a few things from them in terms of how to progress my own career. So yeah, it was a really good opportunity.
Great, thank you very much, Richard. And I think the key thing is, as Richard has commented, and indeed Ranjit as well, that you don't really, that you don't need experience to be involved in the stakeholder panel. We'll absolutely brief you as governors about kind of what's going to be involved and provide you with all the information. So if you would like to take part in that, it's a great opportunity. It's always really interesting, and you're adding, from being involved in it, you're giving us contributing to helping the final decision by the actual interview panel about who should be appointed. So it's a great way of getting some additional experience. Julia, did you want to come in as well?
Thanks, Christy. I just wanted to add in from 3 years ago when I was interviewed, and I'm sure all the other non-execs would say the same, the stakeholder panel that involved patients, carers and governors, for me was the most insightful. I found their questions really fascinating, very simple, open questions that really get to the heart of who you are. So, the formal interview is always very important, obviously, but actually the stakeholder panel, don't underestimate how important that is, because as Krishni just said, I think they really got to know us as individuals far more through the questions in that. There's a couple of questions I'll never forget that are just absolutely get to the heart of what we're about and find out whether you're, whether it's right for you or whether you're right for the organisation. So really, really important panel to be part of. Thanks.
Great, thank you very much. And do you want to come in?
Yeah, I was just going to say I've been on a number of stakeholder panels and also brought people into the organisation who haven't known the system at all. I think it's as much about people learning about NHFT and working in Northamptonshire as anything else. It's a very much a two-way process. It's really, I think it's been really important to people who've come from out of area to meet that wider stakeholder group. And get an understanding of really what it's like in NHFT. And that's what I think's so important, because it gives that wealth of why you'd want to work here. And that's what we want to encourage, to bring more people in.
Lovely, thank you very much. So hopefully we've sold it to a few of you who've not volunteered yet to take part, and really do encourage that. So that would be fantastic. Just also want to take the opportunity to say thank you to governors who were involved in the in developing our annual public and members meeting. It was such a great event, you know, coming up with the theme. I think Judith was involved as well, so thank you to Judith. Thank you to all the governors who made the videos, because they were absolutely great and added a huge amount of interest to the event. I think we had about 60 people probably ish on live in the event, and of course there's also the chance to watch it back, so it's a great opportunity. So across the two events, within a week of each other, we probably had over 100 people participating, which is great, but we always want more, and we always want more people to watch these things as well back, because that can be really helpful. So as Richard said, there's some reminders about events coming up. There's a webinar I think on the 11th of November. The next one, which I discover, is I think a sort of, it's a children's and young people's recovery program, and so I think it'll be really interesting to take part in that if governors have the opportunity to do that. And of course, also coming up very importantly are the constituency meetings, which are your opportunity to engage with NEDs more informally in the two constituencies, North Northants and West Northants, and usually a great opportunity to have a really good informal discussion with the NED colleagues about topics of interest. So if there's no further comments or questions, we'll just receive Richard's report at this stage. And thank you very much, Richard and colleagues who've put that together. So we move on then to updates from myself and Angela. I'll introduce Angela shortly as our Chief Executive, just to go through a few things from her. But I wanted to add to what Richard had said, which is that it was the Nominations Remuneration Committee had a great opportunity this week? I think it was this week, to consider the initial round of applications that we'd received for our vacancies, and it was great to see that there was a lot of interest in the roles in joining us as a non-executive director. So always pleasing to see that. Obviously a long way to go still in terms of the process, but I just wanted to say to any potential NED candidates who might be watching us, because it's the sort of thing that a NED might do, a potential future NED might do, is to say thank you for people's interest, because it is really important. And beyond that, I don't have a lot I particularly wanted to update you on, so I shall invite Angela now, please, Angela, for an update from you.
Thanks, Krishni, and good to be here with everybody. Really important, I think, that we also recognise it's World Mental Health Day today. So that's a really important day for us as a mental health provider, but also important to us for all of our mental health and well-being. So I just wanted to draw attention to that, but also to use it as an opportunity to say thank you to our staff who've supported over 800 staff in primary care being supported around suicide prevention training I think that's a really important piece of work. The executive team have undertaken that training too, and I think it really is a value. So again, just to draw attention to that for governors. So last time I mentioned the civil unrest and the racism and the violence that we'd seen across the country. I think it's important to remind people that whilst things de-escalated, we continue to recognise that impacts on people in the organisation, and that will continue to impact people. So as an organisation, again, hopefully it's familiar to people, but we do have our Together Against Racism programme, which Chris Oakes leads across our group. But it's a really important piece of work that touches many different areas. But I didn't want anybody to feel that work has gone away. It hasn't. It remains very much an agile piece of work. And I'm also pleased to say, if you've seen the Chief Exec report and had a chance to have a look at it, you'll see that we were shortlisted in the National APNA, that's the Asian Professionals National Conference. And I'm pleased to say across the group, we were acknowledged again for an outstanding contribution for equality, diversity and inclusion. That's really important because that's a team effort across the whole organisation that does that. So that's really important because people, as you know, are central to what we're doing in our culture. Other things I would just touch on that I think are important to share with governors is the clearly the important Section 48 review that happened and is happening at Nottinghamshire Healthcare Foundation Trust. This is a national review following a series of homicides that I'm sure people have seen in the media. Now, this has led, and quite rightly led, to a series of actions that the Care Quality Commission undertakes and nationally is undertaken to understand learning and to understand other mental health provision. And I just wanted to flag that because we obviously are responding to that too. That's due process, and really just to share with governors that through our board discussions and our board development sessions, we will keep that very much as an ongoing piece to understand how and in what way that affects us. And, you know, Itai and Linda in particular will be working very closely together to understand that that safety perspective. And again, in future, it may be something, Christian, that people want to hear more about, but we can update as that goes forward. In addition to that, I think it's really important to highlight the winter, and we've talked about demand many times here in our sessions. I think it's important to share that demand hasn't changed. Demand in all our services is very much a constant piece and something that people are dealing with all the time. But we have to recognise that winter is also stepping up, and whilst we have pressures all the time, inevitably as we go into the season for flu, COVID and other respiratory conditions, as well as the winter months, we will expect to see more activity, and we'll be working very much in partnership with our key colleagues to do that. Anne leads a lot of that work, as you'd expect, as the Chief Operating Officer, and Dave equally will be attending Midlands Risk Summits, etc. So there's a lot of activity here, and our staff will be under pressure across all our sectors during this next period. So we have that in mind as well. The other thing that I would mention is around children and young people services. Again, we know our recent inspections as a county around the SEND have been very much focused around improving services and the commissioning of services, and we're continuing to work very much in partnership around that. But that's a really important piece, and I'm pleased to say through the Integrated Care Board, of which I'm a member, there's been more focus on children and young people services, and I think we welcome that, and we really look to respond to that, and I hope that again, governors have seen that there's been some national review, independent review through the Darcy review around some of the challenges that the NHS has at this time. And I'm clear that that has many challenges that are described, and wait times are one of them. And I'm hoping that the 10-year plan opportunity gives us a chance to, you know, influence the community perspective on that and the models of care and the investment in some of our community services. So the final thing that links that for me is the work that is being led particularly through Dave and Paul Sheldon, around the value programme. It still remains a challenge, the financial position for us as an organisation. We're very focused on it. We've clearly got a very clear programme in place that's looking to balance safety, quality and finance. But the finances are challenging, and that's something we have to keep rising to and play our role as a system as well, which again brings additional challenges. So it's important to flag that still remains something that occupies a lot of our focus as an executive team at this time. And I'll leave it there. Thanks, Krishna.
Thank you very much, Angela. And just a reminder, everybody, that you can access. So Angela routinely does a report to the board, and indeed so do I. And of course, all our board papers are available to you to look at. And I believe that governors will have been sent the link to the Chair and CEO report so that you can have a look at them if you wish. But obviously, we don't require you to read them as part of this session. But also, if you prefer, you can just watch back our board meeting, which is available for you to look at in a recording, which means you can flick through the bits that are interesting to you. And I would always recommend the patient story and the discussion that usually follows around that. And there's always some very interesting elements within that. Now, there is an opportunity if anybody would like to ask any questions of our executive colleagues. We've got a number of them here today, so if there's anything that's kind of high on your agenda that you'd like to just ask some questions about, that's absolutely fine. And great, I can see Michael would like to come in. So Michael.
Oh, hi, thank you. Angela, thank you. You touched on the children and young services sort of system review. I just wondered, have you got any update on the commissioning of some of the services for NHFT?
Yeah, so the SEND review in both North and West Northants, Michael, has been, an opportunity, I think, to look at the commissioning of all, and also what joint commissioning happens with health as well. So as part of that, we are looking at working with our integrated care board colleagues and local authorities around speech and language therapy services, looking at some of those weights in particular. We're also looking at the moment, and certainly the system is looking at community paediatrics, because obviously we're not the only provider of that. Northampton General Hospital is also a provider. So at the moment, I think it's important to flag that we've got some support for some services and improvements, but there's more to do, and there's more understanding to be emergent around what is the issues, and are they with us as a provider, are they with the commissioning, are they with redesign that's needed, or is it actually investment cases that are going to make the difference? I think what's important to say that in the operating plan, the community weights around children were not a key priority, so we're hopeful that that is something that will change going forward, and that would give potentially more focus locally as well as nationally on them. But that's what I would say. Anne, did you want to say anything more in terms of the provision, in case I've missed anything there?
Yeah, no, I think it has been an opportunity, and the Children's Transformation Board is really breaking that down into really understanding what the different populations need across the county, and thinking about the fact that we know nationally that there is a lot of pressure on children's services, and it's felt really that that's not about people aren't doing enough. It's about the fact that they haven't necessarily been commissioned in line with the growth of need over the years, and that's been really taken into the heart of the discussions that we're having. So I think it's been very useful. We're working very closely on really tracking where people are waiting and understanding what changes we make, the impact that has, and how we help people who, if anyone is waiting, how we help them in that time. So in the Waiting Well sort of initiative. So there's a lot of work happening. It feels quite an energised sector at the moment, for good reason, definitely.
Michael, thank you for the question, and thank you, Anne and Angela. I think Mark would like to come in. Mark Major, please.
Yeah, it's on similar lines, Angela, really, and David was there as well. We had a really good session, ICB Board of Development session, and I just wondered, because you've brought those issues around kind of children and young people, and also mentioned the Darcy review and some of the winter plans. I wondered if it would be possible maybe to do a bit more of a briefing session in more detail for governors on that, because it was really interesting to see all of that, and it both orientates you into where some of the systems pressures are, but also some of the opportunities to work and focus in those areas. So yeah, just a suggestion for a future agenda.
Yeah, I think that's a really good suggestion, Mark, because as you say, there's a lot to think about in that, and some key messages clearly nationally from the Darcy review, which would be useful to illustrate more and to consider. But also I'm thinking about the 10-year plan and the opportunity which may also be in place for governors to contribute in the co-production side of things through particular organisations. So I think it would be a good opportunity, and again, I don't think that's a problem. We can look at that and probably link that to some of the work that we'd want to influence locally.
What's a good timing? Are we thinking, Angela and Mark, and do we wait? Because obviously the long-term plan element won't come to pass until spring. But I know that the board has obviously had a discussion even today about the ongoing work on children and young people, and the outcomes and the SEND inspections. So do we, Mark, I'm just thinking in terms of timing, were you thinking we should do something sooner rather than later, and then we do a separate piece on Darcy? Just in terms of planning for a future item, what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I don't know what other people think, but I think because these things are quite energized at the moment, it would be good to do the orientation piece kind of as soon as we can, and then we can get, like Angela said, as we understand more about those things, we can then come back to them, and everybody will be on a sort of same sheet of paper then about maybe what the key issues are.
So, perhaps there's an opportunity to pick that up at our next council meeting, if that would work if colleagues feel that would be interesting. I think that might work quite well. Dave, I'm sort of looking at you as well. I think that might work quite well in terms of, I know we talked about sort of assurance to quality and safety, and there might be a nice loop round to council in December council. Would it be, Richard?
It would, yes.
Yeah, so we can certainly take that forward, Mark. I think it's a really good suggestion, and we'll think about how best to cover some of that off, and either at council or at a workshop, depending on what we think is best within that, but we'll certainly take that away. The other thing I just wanted to pick up was John asked actually in the chat, is there any chance of making longer the hours of the crisis cafes? And I wondered, Anne, whether you could come in on that at all?
Yeah, it's always something that we can put into the discussion. We've commissioned it for a certain sort of amount of time, but we're always looking at how we can flex that to the best, and whether there's room to extend it. What I'll do is I will ask for the crisis pillar in the MHLDA collaborative to look at it and consider the best way to use the resources we've got, and see how much spread we can get to make sure it's equivalent in North and West as well. So I'll take that back to the collaborative.
Thanks, Anne. And just, it's probably worth sort of reinforcing for colleagues that this is in partnership, isn't it, with Mind, and therefore it's a sort of joint initiative, not one that we can do independently. Is that right, Anne?
That's right, yeah.
Yeah. So obviously something we'll need to involve in discussions with Mind and consider. But great question, John, and an important. Clearly, it's a valuable service, isn't it? And people do value its availability and access. Okay, so Is there anything else? Michael, there is a hand still up, but I don't know whether that's a legacy. No, okay, that's fine. So anybody got any other questions or comments before we move on? Any other areas that anyone wanted to share, including exec colleagues who wanted to come in at all? Okay, great. Well, thank you very much, Angela, for the update. Really helpful. And as I say, I would just recommend that colleagues look at our recording of our board, if you know, and or look at the papers, whichever you find easiest to delve into to see what discussions we had, because it is useful to do that in the context of this meeting. So I'm really delighted for the next item that I'm going to invite Heba, one of our staff governors, to share her story. Heba is a practice development nurse in international recruitment, became a staff governor, I think, earlier this year. So over to you.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Heba. I'm Heba Kadir. My background, I qualified as an adult nurse, and I was working in acute hospital for almost a few years. Then I joined the NHFT in 2018 as a district nurse. During this time, it was a little bit of transition between acute and the community. It was hard time because I didn't have anyone to advocate of my need and understand exactly. Of course, I'm a nurse, but coming from different background, different environment, it was really hard for me. So that time I said that I think I need someone to advocate for our staff. That was 2018. Then I moved to become one of the triage nurse in the single point of access. Then after that, I got a little bit of promotion, become practice development for district nurses as a beginner. And that time, I found for me the opportunity to give them the support, the one I didn't get at the beginning, to help the new starter regarding like the new qualified or coming from acute department, coming to the district nurses. So I developed lots of support for them. And that was the beginning for me. Then I become as a professional nursing advocate. So I start having lots of supervision with nurses from different backgrounds, all the county. When I was doing the practice development for district nurses, I was actually covering all the county from William-Borough, Rushden, Northampton, Kettering, Corby, Daventry, Brackley. So I had a little bit more understanding of our trust geography, and I found like some of the area develop very well when it comes to support the staff, and some of them lack of this support. So when I become practice development, professional nursing advocate, I start having this kind of concern about the staff. And that's how I realized really the staff need to be supported and be advocated for. And that, of course, to give quality for our patient and health and safety, and for patient safety as well. So I discovered as well another role in the trust as a culture ambassador. So the training I had, it actually opened my mind for more diversity, more inclusion, more like being involved in all the culture. So I've been involved as well like with REACH network, and REACH stands for Race, Ethnicity, and Cultural Heritage. So we become like a more active member in the trust, and I always advocate for our nurses, especially my role in the trust these days as practice development lead for international recruitment. So I become more like raising any concern for the nurses. And we had last weekend, we have celebration for culture and diversity. And that actually was more about integration between the three trusts in NGH and KGH, and of course our NHFT, and that was more successful. So you can see some of my concern to get involved with this kind of project. And actually we did. And you can see some of the lovely pictures in the side here. We got Chris Oak and David Ledger. And more stuff as well came. We got David Maha came and Itai as well. But I didn't have a chance to take picture with them, unfortunately. So I found myself now to become more supportive in our trust. So how would I explain my role to the service to become member of the public? So by advocating for our staff and support the trust with opening days and feed. So I joined lots of conference to gain more understanding about different services as well and what exactly they need or what is the concern. And if any, of course, any problem, any concern, I try to raise it to our non-exec or on the board. So that as well, like I'm trying to support the service to give better quality of care. And as well, like I joined for interview panel because I'm recruitment ambassador as well. And this one of the pledges for the governor. But this I'm going to join that as well on the 18th of November. So this is something a little bit, of course, more understanding for more pledges. So as well, like to get involved in different projects, as I said, for the diversity and inclusion, and try to connect the trust governor with reach. So I have a little bit of understanding of cultural competencies. So I have as well Julia, one of our non-exec just told me today they actually are working on this kind of training. So I'm actually trying to implement it to be mandatory regarding our staff, our patients, our carers, so everyone understand exactly how to deal with everyone to that, of course, for better quality of care. And for me to attend more meetings, like like today as well, like for council governor in public, and to get engaged with the committee. Okay. So the most satisfaction for this role for me is advocating for the staff. And I found it, honest, is more fulfilling and to voice our colleagues' concern, to give me the opportunity to present their concern idea and their needs, and as well to help them to shape any decision to improve our workplace and as well as our work condition. Secondly, I try as well like to influence and strategy decision, which I play like a key role in shaping the strategic direction, having my voice as well heard when it comes to build any strategy in our trust. And that, of course, give me a little bit of more involvement in high decision making and allow me to contribute in the policy. And being like the middleman or the bridge between the staff and the management, or can say the exact and the exact in our trust, that become like rewarding for me because I can help ensure most of the concern has been heard and considered, and as well work open that. One of them as well is for my professional growth. For me to become as a staff governor, it offer me professional and personal development. So I have gained lots of vulnerable experience in governance, leadership, strategy, thinking, which that as will help me to, improve my career in the future. And I can see that as well, like, we're going to impact in our patient care for high quality of care and patient safety. By knowing my work as a governor, it helps support to deliver better care. Of course, during this time, I find lots of challenges for this role, which is balance between my actual role and the duty as a governor. So one of my greatest challenge is balancing this responsibility of being a staff governor, day-to-day job as well. But I found, of course, a way for time management and prioritize what's essential, what is supposed to be, done on time, and I don't have to neglect any one of them. I find sometimes as well like managing conflicting interest. At the time, I may need to navigate conflict interest between the needs of staff or patients and the board organization. So balancing this competing priority while making fair decision can be difficult at the time. Handling sensitive issues, which presenting the staff means I need to address sensitive issues such as grievance, workplace, racism. I found that sometimes as well to handle this kind of topics more a little bit hard, especially when I need to maintain the confidentiality for the staff or the patient as well. And by influencing the change in a large organization like NHFT, that as well, like it makes a little bit of I can say a little bit hard to get the policy approved on time, or ensuring the staff concern has been addressed and take that appropriate time, not taking that long, and that sometimes become frustrated for me, for the staff, or as well for the board. And for me as well to be being a natural advocate as a staff governor, I need to present my colleague fairly while maintaining impartial stance. Navigating this balance between advocating for staff and supporting organization goal can be tricky sometimes, especially if they have opinion a bit different from the staff side of point of view and the board. However, overall, the role as a staff governor is just more satisfying for me. It gave me actually positive impact, and I feel I'm making a difference to my colleague and the patient. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Heber. And I think Dave has put in the comments that you've bashfully or shyly haven't mentioned that you won an award for your leadership at the event on Saturday. Is that
Yes,
right?
it is actually right.
So congratulations.
Thank you.
That's a fantastic thing and absolutely richly deserved. So I'm sure everybody would want to give you a virtual round of applause for that, which is fantastic and something to celebrate. But it does, I'm sure there'll be some questions, Hebe, if you're comfortable to take them. And I think maybe some reflections for us as well as in terms of things that you've commented on that we might want to just consider. But I'll bring in a couple of people who've raised their hands initially. So first of all, Mark, please. Mark Major.
Sorry, I just wanted to say huge well done. What great work and leadership in that area. That's so good to see. So yeah, just to say that, thank you.
Thanks, Mark. And yeah, and particularly as you've taken on all these sort of cultural ambassador, inclusive recruitment ambassador, all these things are really important programs of work for us. And there may be things that people want to ask about those as well, because we can certainly take the opportunity to comment on those. So Saqib, please.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I've met Heber through the Reach Network, and it's great to hear from somebody that's so passionate about sharing her lived experience and advocating for others. And I think there was a report, I don't recall whether it was talking about the workforce, and it may even be as far ahead as 2050, but it was saying that the international recruitment is going to play an even larger part in our workforce in the NHS as the shift between UK-born workforce to foreign-born workforce increases. So I think it's a really vital part that Heber is playing, and really important to NHFT. Well done.
Thank you, Saqib.
I just as well would like to add, like our trust has been, I can say, lots of audit has been recorded. We have very high staffing now. Before we used to use lots of agency, but since we started having international nurses, it has been reduced. And of course, it has been shown in our budget and our auditing. We have been recruiting now 59 nurses, and we retain 54, but 55 within the the collaboration. So we're still retaining. So as well, we have our retaining 100%. Thank you, Ali.
Thank you. It's really important, isn't it? And I'm sure, part of what sort of Heber has been talking about is the importance, I mean, if you can just hear we've heard from Heber already, it's already difficult when you're transitioning from one type of organization to another. Imagine if you're transitioning from a different country and you're coming to the UK to work. So it just shows the importance of the support we provide to people when they're starting, really. And I guess different people need different levels of support, but all support to new people starting is really important, isn't it? And I think Heba's story really reinforces that for us. Adam, please.
Thanks, Krishni. Yeah, no, I wanted to say something because I thought it was just a really great presentation, and a word that's often used, but I think is very justified here, is inspiring. Actually, it was very inspiring, and in the time that I've been, I remember we did induction at the same time. I've valued your input very much as a staff governor, because that's obviously as a public governor, that's something that we can't bring, and your ability to advocate, I think, is something which has been very clear to me. And I know, particularly when you're working in an organisation, there's possibly a tension between perhaps acquiring a reputation. But I think, from what I've seen, I think you do that really well. So well done, and thanks for sharing.
Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. That's really nice. Anu, please.
Yes, I just want to reiterate and say for Heba has been such a strength to me as well, because as a cultural ambassador, she has helped me in a very difficult time when I was going through. So Heba has been there, and I just want to thank her for all the work, and it was a brilliant presentation, and I can say she does it really well. She's very kind and very good listener and everything. So both of us, when we got to know that we have actually applied for the post, and when we got the staff governor post, we were so happy, for each other, because we can support each other, because I've got to know her more than just being a cultural ambassador, much more like a friend.
Thank you.
So I just want to thank for that, actually, Heba.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Anu. And the important thing is you were elected by your colleagues. So it's, that also says something, doesn't it? Because as staff members, other staff members have elected you to represent them on the Council of Governors. So I think that's a really important achievement in its own right, because there was plenty of competition for the Council of Governor roles for staff governors. So it's a great achievement. Michael, did you want to come in?
Yeah. Hi, Heba. Just to add, congratulations to you on your award. And I think also, just picking up on Krishni's comment, that also well done to you, because I think in terms of your leadership role, clearly, people recognize that and value that as well. I was just fascinated by all that development. And I was trying to keep up making my notes. But one thing that really interested me was when you were talking about managing conflict. I think between the role and working with managers and departments, and I just wondered, has that given you an insight then in terms of your role as a staff governor to trying to explain some of the challenges around operational issues and how decisions are made, in a wider context? And has that given you a better sort of understanding, and then how you can try and convey that to some of your colleagues?
Be honest with you, Michael, most of the conflict is unconscious. People actually as unaware. And I found it is a different culture, it play a big issue. So for example, let's talk about international nurses. They already qualified maybe more than me. They're actually experienced 20 years ago. But of course, when they come here, they have to start from at the scratch as band 5. So some of the managers, they don't even recognize this experience. And they look at them band 5. But they're actually managers in their home country. So they come over here with lots of knowledge, lots of experience. We're going to learn from them. But if we have this kind of like open-minded to listen to them and be open. So I think that for me, the conflict to try to explain that to other people is a bit hard. Of course, I'm from different backgrounds. People say, okay, it's like, being a bias, but it's not. It's just only understanding. But if you listen to the managers and you listen to my colleague, make you feel like it's a little bit some misunderstood, miscommunication in the middle. So we try to do like culture competences, culture awareness for everyone in the trust. It's still a piece of work need to be done, to be mandatory, because we are dealing with a huge geographic area in our NHFT. So our patient as well from different background. So if the staff dealing with their own stuff, with this kind of conflict, what do you expect you're going to deal that with a patient? And it doesn't matter the patient from Africa or from Eastern Europe or from Ukraine or from Asian, it doesn't matter. We all should be the same. I know our NHFT running together against racist, but I think it needs to be widened a bit more. And that has to be mandatory. I'm sure Angela Hillary hearing me now, so we need to have that to be mandatory, because our nurses here, not just international, actually our nurses, they actually starting like scratching the surface with also problem underneath, which no one actually was hearing about it, but just because we have become more like in hand or more visible in the ward with the patient, with our nurses, we start seeing lots of conflict. And of course, we try to solve one problem for another problem coming. But this problem actually, it has been for years and years. So if we start having this kind of, conversation openly, and transparent, I think that will help. Hope that answers your question, Mike.
Thank you, Heba. So, I mean, there's a lot in what Heba said about, and interestingly, I think in a conversation earlier, I mean, the board members were together, by the way, just in an informal workshop meeting earlier in the day. And one of the things we talked about was the importance of everyone being person-centered in the care that we provide to our patients. But actually, I think there's something really important about being person-centered when it comes to each other and to us, that to our staff. Dave, I think we talked about kindness and compassion, but part of that, so much of that is being open to each other's differences, being sensitive, learning about each other, all of those things which are really important to encourage culturally, I think, as an organisation, and certainly we've tried to do that through some of our cultural, our compassion conferences and that sort of thing. Chris, did you want to comment at all on sort of cultural competence and that sort of training element that Heba raised?
Sorry, was that to me, Christy?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes,
I didn't hear my name. Sorry. Yeah, no, we've got a range of actions that have emerged out of listening events following the riots. One of those is to develop the training on the cultural competency, and that's really about how we equip managers with the skills to have discussions about race so that it doesn't feel uncomfortable and we can introduce it into the work that people do in managing staff. That is developing, and indeed we did part of the development at our recent conference, which we had over 200 staff at, and there was a workshop on that where that started to develop. And also we've got NHS resources, national resources, which Amelia, who's one of our REACH co-chairs, was involved in, and that's feeding into it. We're working on that over sort of probably the next month or so to start to finalise it, and then we need to work out how we will cascade it down, because it needs to be something that Heba was saying it needs to be for a lot of staff, and we want all the managers really to do that and see how we can cascade further. So it's an exciting piece of work and it's progressing well.
Great, thank you, Chris. And ultimately, I guess, you know, that would be a first stage. I think it'd be great if we can extend, you know, the training to be available to colleagues, because we can all, I'm sure benefit from that. But it's great to hear that initiative is on its way. I'm conscious a couple of people want to come in, so I'll probably take those and then we'll need to move on. But if I bring Julia in first, please.
Thanks, Krishni. And you just mentioned one of my points, which was compassionate leadership. I'd just written that down, Heather, just while you were talking. Just two quick points. One is to reiterate what Adam said, absolutely inspirational. And, you know, it's not just because you're in a role that you're able to do that, it's what you bring personally to that role. And the other thing I was thinking about is the number of people across our organisation that you must have impacted with your, you know, different programmes you've been involved in, and, you know, with all the work that you do must be huge. And if every one of us could have that reach and impact that many people, then what a great, you know, opportunity we have to make sure that we impact patients and service users, because, you know, when our staff are acting in a compassionate way, then, you know, our care is better, and you know, just the whole way that we deliver care is improved. So thank you very much, very inspirational. And I just want to think about the reach you've had and just take a moment just to reflect that, because that will be huge. Thanks.
Thank you, Julia. And finally from John.
Hello. Again, I had a lot to do with Carolite nurses when they came over, and I remember that there were things that they couldn't get on the from the government, and they couldn't bring their husbands, and they couldn't bring their children and stuff like that. Would it be possible to actually bring people over here as British people, instead of saying you can't do this and you can't do that, and, you've got to go home? And yeah, I really find that the way the Carolites were treated in the beginning was abhorrent, absolutely abhorrent.
Thank you, John. Yeah, it's a difficult one, isn't it? Because whatever the government of the day, the government of the day obviously sets the policies, doesn't it, on sort of, you know, what the arrangements are for who's allowed into the country or whatever. And I don't know exactly whether that was the point you were making, but I think that is something we need to work within. But the really important thing is that we support whoever it is and wherever they come from. I think Heber's point with the importance of the support we provide to people, and how we as an employer in particular make people's lives better and support them in a way that helps them be the most productive, really, and feel happy. So Heber, shall we give you the final word and then we'll move on to our next item?
No, actually, I want to have like a little bit request. Just to echo what John said. So some of the nurses, of course, they come with a family, husband and wife, or, you know, wife and the children, and they are actually they left their job back home, and when they come here, try to get job in UK, you find it difficult because they don't have experience in the UK. However, they're actually direct in their own country. So I'm just thinking our trust can support with this kind of stuff. I know they don't get any help from the government, as John said, but I think like we can support them, like provide job for the spouse, help them, because usually when they apply even for HCA, they get, you know, declined because they don't have experience in the UK. So I think maybe something we need to look at, because that will help, because one wages in one home, it will not going to be enough for 4 people, maybe 2 children as well. It will be, it's actually a struggle. They really struggle. But of course, if it's 2 wages come in the house, they manage. Especially these people, they come with lots of experience, as I said, and knowledge. So why don't you use that?
Thank you, Heba. Well, I think that's something we're going to have to take away. I think we could have a whole discussion around that, and we haven't got, unfortunately, the opportunity to do that today. But if that's something you could feed in and consider as part of, the program of work already in place around international recruitment, I think that's something we should consider what support can be provided to families. And employment opportunities, etc. Because we do have a role as an anchor institution within our system. Of course, we have to follow employment rules and all of those other things as well. So it's not an easy discussion or easy solution, but I think it is something we can look at. So thank you very much, Heba, for your for your presentation, which I think everybody enjoyed very much and found really inspirational. So well done on everything you've done and everything you've achieved. And we look forward to you continuing to contribute so fantastically to the organisation. Right, we move on then to our risk and assurance topic, which is our final topic for today. And it's on freedom to speak up, which is important really because it is Freedom to Speak Up month this month. So it feels really important to be discussing this. And I'll hand over to Melanie and Judith, who are going to lead this item for us. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. And I do feel that, Heba, everything that you've said leads really well into this presentation, which is absolutely about building bridges between people who can listen to each other with open minds, seek to understand and take forward change that improves lives, services, etc. So for those of you who aren't aware, and if we move on to the next slide, please, Tracy, Freedom to Speak Up. So Freedom to Speak Up is a programme, if you like, that was developed almost 10 years ago now, can you believe it, in the NHS, trying to pull together the threads of good practice from what you might have described previously as whistleblowing, but with a structure and an ambition that could be standardised across the NHS. So Freedom to Speak Up is cultural. It's also, as I said, a programme that requires every single trust in the NHS to drive forward the opportunity for employees to raise concerns and issues, be that staff, be that clinical staff, be that back office staff, be that catering and contractors even to the NHS. Anyone who sees something about which they might have a concern has an opportunity to raise it and be listened to and to have action taken and a response and an answer given. And this programme in every NHS trust is led by what we call the Freedom to Speak Up Guardian. So we have a Guardian Beth Brand. The Guardian is there to support staff to speak up and to manage the way that those staff then get answers, not to answer it, but to ensure that the signposting is appropriate and that the process of having an issue raised to having an issue answered and a response is managed effectively. And the Guardian is also there to inform the trust about how to drive the culture of openness, learning and improvement. And I think, there's been across the NHS varying degrees of evolution of freedom to speak up. But I think it's fair to say that for NHFT, freedom to speak up goes well beyond just having a formalised, if you like, freedom to speak up programme with a Guardian. Freedom to speak up, or the desire to hear people's concerns and act on them, has been a cultural foundation over the last few years within NHFT. It's about trying to make a difference. It's about keeping people, our colleagues and our patients safe. And NHFT is all about being an open and transparent place to work, and freedom to speak up is one of the pillars of that. But there are many others. And I'm sure you may have heard, and if you haven't, you certainly will do, across your governorship, us talk about any door being an open door. So whether a member of our teams wants to follow a formalised freedom to speak up process, or whether they want to talk to their manager, whether Heather is acting as a bridge, whether they want to raise it with a colleague. We want to feel that everyone has the opportunity to raise a concern, be listened to, and to drive forward improvement off the back of that. So, as NEDS, if you move on, please, Tracy, as NEDS, and as an executive team, indeed, there is a sort of a governance that sits over Freedom to Speak Up. Freedom to Speak Up essentially has a strategy that lays out how Freedom to Speak Up is going to be supported and developed over time. There is a really useful NHS England self-assessment tool that the Trust uses to measure progress against best in class. There are statistics and reporting that gets done, but there's also learning and development. And all of those things are part of what we as NEDS and what the board looks at through a variety of different forums. So first of all, the Integrated Assurance Committee, which looks at workforce issues generally, they receive quarterly reports. And for example, at the last Integrated Assurance Committee, we received an update on the progress against the strategic plan. And those quarterly reports tend to focus on the statistics, a review of how many concerns are being raised, the trends within those concerns, and as I say, the learning and development that is ongoing. There's an annual report to the Trust Board, which covers all of that, but sort of looking at the themes and trends across the whole year. I personally am the non-executive director who has the Freedom to Speak Up lead responsibility, and I sit down on a monthly basis with our Freedom to Speak Up guardian, and I check in and we talk about, again, the trends and themes, areas that she wants to flag, and also we look at some of the obstacles that might be faced. And then on a quarterly basis, the Guardian sits down with myself, with Krishni and with Angela, and we talk about, again, the development and evolution of Freedom to Speak Up, some of the trends, the themes, some of the issues, some of the obstacles and barriers. So Freedom to Speak Up has a lot of governance oversight within the Trust. But, you know, what are we looking for as NEDS? And on the next slide, you know, how do we gain assurance? What are the things that we're particularly looking for, if you like, to make sure that we can hold the executives to account, that we can hold the Guardian to account as well, and that we can be assured that the Freedom to Speak Up programme is effective and doing what it's meant to do within NHFT. That graph just gives you a sort of a sense of the number of speaking up concerns that are raised by year and by quarter. And we always want to see more of those. So one of the key measures is simply, you know, are we seeing, you know, any trends in reporting quantity? Because the more we see, the more effective we can learn, and the more it demonstrates that our staff feel confident about speaking up. But there are other things. So, for example, we would be looking at the Freedom to Speak Up policy and the refresh of the policy from time to time, and to make sure that the policy addresses matters that are coming through Freedom to Speak Up in terms of trends, and that maybe new policies are being written to address those themes. And a good example of that would be detriment, where someone might raise a concern and then feel that that's had a detrimental impact on them in some way within the workplace. We would look for policies, processes and procedures that support Freedom to Speak Up to be verified by internal audit. And it just so happens that we have only recently received the latest internal audit undertaken by TIA, our internal audit partners, on Freedom to Speak Up. And I'm going to hand over to Judith at this point to just give you a quick overview of what the very latest internal audit report told us. Judith.
Thanks, Melanie. I clearly got the hospital pass here because I've got to talk to you about internal audit. But believe me, it was a really interesting report because although on the whole internal audit focuses very much on processes and procedures, the scope of this specific audit also looked at the culture
around freedom to speak up. So it gave me and the non-execs and the board members a lot of assurance as to all the things that are going well. So the point of internal audit is not only to give us assurance, but also to hold up a mirror between us, between our trust, NHFT, and the rest of the other NHS trusts. So we do get a sense of what other people are doing, what's best in class, if you like. So happy to report that we received substantial assurance for the Freedom to Speak Up internal audit report, which is the highest grading, if you like, and a very small minority of reports receive that substantial assurance. It really is, if you like, the A star of internal audit reports. So a couple of good practice which was identified is that the executive team and the board generally, so that includes us as non-executive directors, are really supportive of speaking up, and that we have a good relationship. The board and non-execs have a good working relationships with the Freedom to Speak Up Guardian, and that any actions that need to be made and taken as a result of issues brought up by the Freedom to Speak Up Guardian are done. So that there's a very good, so the internal audit found that there was indeed a very good culture around within the trust around freedom to speak up. Now, in respect to other strategic findings, just very briefly, the internal audit gave us a big thumbs up around our processes and arrangements, that they are aligned to requirements and also guidance, which I shan't bore you with. It's a very long title, but that was a really good piece of assurance. We also have a very strong uptake on freedom to speak up training. So our compliance target is 90% per year, and all staff take up was at 98.76%. So as you can see, we are almost at the 100% mark for taking up training on freedom to speak up, which really shows the commitment not only of staff but also of managers to, if you like, get staff on the training, to get the staff to do the training. And also, as a trust, we scored above the national average for questions relating to speaking up in the National Staff Survey, and recommendations have been made to, if there were any recommendations made, then all areas have been addressed for improvement. So overall, a really glowing internal audit report, which was frankly quite a pleasure to listen to, and a real reflection of all the work that is being carried out by the Freedom to Speak Up Guardian. I'll hand you back to Melanie. Thank you.
Thanks, Judith. And just worth pointing out, I think Judith might have mentioned, but to reiterate, that report was thoroughly digested in the audit committee, where all of our internal audit reports arrive once they've had managerial response and input. So it had good debate, and a report certainly worthy of celebration. So we have those kind of reports which give us assurance. We obviously look at the data, we look at the number of concerns raised and how they are being addressed. We focus as NEDs through the various committees and reporting on the cultural development. So what are the plans for Freedom to Speak Up Month, the induction and mandatory training, which Judith just referred to. But we also have a network of Freedom to Speak Up champions, and I will attend from time to time the Freedom to Speak Up champion training days and the champion development days. We look on our service visits as well as through the staff survey results to see how staff feel they are supported and able to positively reflect that they can raise concerns openly or confidentially if that's their choice, and that those concerns are taken seriously and acted upon. And we look at the evidence of the lessons learned as we go through our service visits, in particular in response to trends and themes that are raised through Freedom to Speak Up. And finally, if there are specific people trends, or there are specific patient safety concerns, or maybe there are specific teams that are seeing a larger than one might consider normal number of concerns being raised through Freedom to Speak Up, those will be taken through the Quality and Safety Committee or the Integrated Assurance Committee as appropriate, delved into. Maybe we'll invite the service to come and to talk to us and to take us through action plans to drive improvement. So there is a comprehensive way, I feel, that the NEDs do gain assurance around freedom to speak up. It's a fundamental foundation of this trust's drive for ever to be a compassionate and learning organisation. And at this point, Krishni, I think that brings the formalities to a close. Happy to take any questions between you and myself.
Thank you, Melanie. I do think it's really important to say, and I want, that people will know Anu's comment. In all of that, that does not mean, I think Angela would say, I would say, the board would say, we recognise that that does not mean that everybody's experience of speaking up is positive. I think it's really important to say that. Substantial assurance about our process is that we're trying to do everything we can to make sure the process works, that people understand what needs to be done. Does it mean it's perfect? Does it mean that everybody's experience is good? No, and we know that. We absolutely know that. And we know of instances, individual instances where it's not. So I think it's really important to say that, because we can get the assurance, but we always know, as ever, it's like being outstanding rated in the CQC. That does not mean, and we don't think we are perfect. Now, Anu, I'm happy to bring you in, but obviously it's really important that you don't speak about your individual circumstances. So if you wanted to come in and comment broadly, that's absolutely fine. But I think bearing in mind it's a public meeting. So Melanie?
Anu, just before you come in, if I may, just to reiterate, of course, Christian's absolutely right. And as NEDs, we are, and as the Freedom to Speak Up lead, I think what we would say is that where there are delays in response, where there are a lack of satisfaction with the response, where there are responses and there are complexities. I think what I can say is that there is awareness of that, and we do take steps. That doesn't mean to say that everything gets satisfactorily resolved, but there is always a good discussion, I feel, and debate. And that is what the closeness of the relationship between the Guardian, the chair, the CEO, and the NED are there to really try and protect and enforce that there is that awareness and knowledge of the process in all its shapes, forms, and challenges. Yeah.
Thank you. Anu?
Yeah, it's not to say because I have come out of it. So for me, I would like for the trust to actually promote and engage with people and say, I do like to say, yes, don't wait. If you have any concerns, speak up. That's what I'm trying to say. It's I just say I mentioned because through that experience, I have been able to come up. And now I look at a positive thing, because sometimes I had a family who supported, so I was fantastic. But at the same time, there could be people who have good experience, bad experience, whatever. We should be there for everyone and then, pick them up and say, no, you're special, you can come up and things like that. That's what I was trying to say, not to say anything what I've gone through or anything. It's just to positively put it for NHFT to say, I am happy to actually advocate, to say, yes, speak up. Don't be afraid, speak up. That's what I wanted to say.
Thank you, Anu. That's really, really important coming from all our staff, because actually I think we would all say as a board, if people don't speak up, we can't change anything. It's a bit like the conversation we had in the workshop, our confidential, no, it's not confidential, but our informal workshop earlier, where we're talking about feedback. All feedback is a gift. All feedback allows us to improve. So feedback can be good, feedback can be negative, but it allows us to improve. So if people don't raise concerns, we can't change things. So it's really, really important. If there's one thing actually every council member can do and every board member can do in Speak Up Month is encourage everybody they speak to in our organisation to speak up. Because if we can hear that there's a problem, we can try. We won't always get it right, actually. The reality of complex organisations is it doesn't always work exactly the way people want. But it is really important we hear things, because if we hear things, we can do something about it or try and do something about it. And it is really important that if somebody has spoken up and they feel they've had what's called detriment, I think, in the procedure, that we try and prevent that. You know, we try and minimise any feelings of detriment, any harm coming to the individual who spoke up. And I think Adam raised an important question, perhaps a little bit earlier, about a pledge that was made by the incoming health secretary around, you know, how whistleblowers who are silenced and how unacceptable that is. And we would regard that as unacceptable within our organisation. What I would say is that I think the fit and proper persons type, you know, misconduct type elements that's now been introduced under fit and proper persons would also help us with that right now, irrespective of what the government chooses to do or not. That if somebody really was found to have tried to silence somebody who had a legitimate concern to raise, then I think it would be picked up, particularly if you were a director of an organisation. I think it would be picked up under fit and proper. So are there any other questions that anybody wanted to raise? I'm just going to look down. Dave has just commented. Oh, Melanie?
Well, I was only going to say two things, just looking at a couple of questions in the chat.
Yeah.
Just to be clear, that when we talk about internal audit, it's actually an external auditor that we use to conduct audits on our internal processes. So it's not us auditing our own processes. So the report that Judith referred to was by an external auditor deployed by us to do internal audit. And the only other thing was asked about data on time taken to resolve issues. We do look at time taken to resolve issues. Of course, it varies massively depending on the complexity of the resolution or the investigation or whatever might be necessary to address the concern raised. But those that are taking a long time tend to be sort of individually reviewed and are flagged by the Guardian for discussion with the likes of myself and with Krishni and Angela.
Thanks, Melanie. Really helpful that you picked those things up. And I can see Julia wants to come in as well. What I would say is if anyone wants to just get a little bit more understanding of the kinds of issues that come up through Freedom to Speak Up, there is an annual Freedom to Speak Up report. Richard, I'm not absolutely sure when can anyone in the board remember when it came to the board? Was it the last board meeting or the one before that? Anyone
Summertime,
remember?
I think, Krishni. We can get the link. I think it was in July.
I'm going to say July.
But,
I'm going to say July. Just check me on that, Richard. Yeah.
So just to say, so the annual report is in the public domain. Beth, I think, came to the meeting and talked the board through it. And it shows an analysis of the kinds of things that people have raised concerns about, the number of concerns, whether they were anonymous or not, themes emerging from it, things that we're taking forward to try and address issues that have come up through the process. So that's really important. Was that the point, Julia, you were going to make? But feel free to come in.
Yeah, no, absolutely that. And to say that the executive summary is always really, really informative. And I know in the commentary, there were a few comments. Ranjit, I think you were asking about learning particularly. There's a lot of information in that annual report and what we see quarterly as well. So we ensure that themes and trends are shared across anonymously across all our services. But yeah, the exec summary is brilliant. You don't have to read the whole thing, but certainly the exec summary really, really helpful.
Yeah. So, and I think in terms of process, I think there's an annual report to the board, which comes into public board. We also have a session with Beth as a board all together, so she can talk directly to all of us about things that she's hearing. As Melanie and Judith said, we have regular sessions with Angela, myself, and Melanie with the Freedom Speak Up Guardian, so we can hear from her about any concerns she might have or any support she needs from us. She works closely with Dave as well. So it is really, I think, probably the reason why our internal auditors, who, as Melanie rightly said, are actually an external organisation, assessed us well for this, is we put a lot of energy into trying to make it work, and we have a lot of processes to safeguard the way that Freedom Speak Up works in our organisation, because we value it and we see it as a really important part of creating the kind which Anu was emphasising, which is one where staff feel safe to raise concerns, and that is what we're striving for. We don't always get it right, but that I think is really important. Angela, I'll give you the final word on this.
Yes, no, thanks, Christian. Really useful discussion, I think, and really brings it to life in terms of everything that's happening. But I think I just wanted to make the point that I think it's really good to see concerns coming through, because sometimes people say, well, if that's a lot of concerns, does that mean that's a bad thing? We take quite the reverse. I know that's been said, but I think it's important because some trusts still don't get many concerns raised. So it's a healthy culture that gets concerns raised. And as Dave's put in the chat, that they're open, they're not anonymous, they are shared. That's a really healthy sign as well. So we'll always encourage more to come forward. Thank you.
And actually, that does remind me that a while ago, Angela, I think when we introduced Freedom Speak Up champions from different cultural backgrounds, we had a massive increase, didn't we, from our from our diverse workforce. We had a massive increase. I think it was like 200% increase in the amount of concerns raised. We thought that was a really positive thing, because what it showed was that because we had more diverse Freedom to Speak Up champions, more people from diverse backgrounds felt confident to speak up. So that's a good thing. That should be just like reporting incidents is a good thing, because all these things help us to understand and learn from the experience. So I hope that's given you a good flavour of why we think Freedom to Speak Up is really, really important to us. I think thank you again to Heba for her earlier story, which I think really neatly linked on to what we've been talking about. And thanks to Melanie and Judith for taking us through a really important area. We can send you the link to our public report so that you can just have another look at it if you want to. It'll be on our website anyway. But yeah, thank you, everybody. It's been another really engaging Council of Governors meeting, and we look forward to catching up with you in December. Michael?
Oh, sorry, Chair. Were you going on to any other business?
I wasn't going to invite any other business because I should be notified of any other business beforehand, Michael. But was it something urgent that you wanted to pick up?
It was just a plea. I've asked on 2 occasions now if we could just be updated on the non-exec walkabouts, and I understand there's a process of revising that. It would just be really helpful to try and get some dates in the diary, sort of planning ahead. Thank you.
Oh, no problem, Michael. We'll take that away and make sure that if you're one of the governors who was keen to join some visits, we'll absolutely we'll make sure we take that away and pick that up with you. So no problem, leave that with us. Thank you so much, everybody. We've run over a few minutes. Just a reminder, there's no private council meeting today, so we've let you off the hook for the rest of the day, but thank you so much for all your contributions. Lovely to see you all, and we'll see you in December.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.